All right. So for those of you who don't know, I'm an ENFJ and Crystal is an ENFP, and we have been best friends for about 5 years now. How long has it been?
Like 5.5 years.
Whoa. Yeah. And I'll just tell you that our friendship actually really started because of personality type. And when we first realized, we have three of the same letters, right? ENFP, ENFJ, you might think that that means that being friends would just be a walk in the park, right? Right, Crystal?
Yeah, that's what you would think.
What did you think when you first knew that I was an ENFJ and you didn't know that much about type? Were you thinking that we had a lot in common with the J and P?
I honestly didn't I didn't think about it as lots in common or not. I just thought, oh, there's something about us that's similar and something about us that's probably different. Like I didn't make any assumptions by how similar or how different we were.
Was your first impression of me before you knew about type? Did you think that we were pretty similar or different?
I feel like I never think about how people are similar to me or not. I just notice they're super different. If they're super different than me, I notice.
So you weren't like, it wasn't like, oh, like totally way different specimen.
Yeah, it wasn't like that. It was just, oh, specimen that I can get along with better than this other person or something.
Yeah. So that's all to say that in this video today, we're going to discuss just a little bit about what it means to be a friend. And Crystal and I are going to both share sort of the pet peeves of friendship from an ENFP perspective and also an ENFJ perspective, which I think we can kind of even use our own friendship as an example. Because I guess I'll just say really quick that this tool of understanding personality type has helped me be so much more of a better friend to Crystal. Hopefully you agree.
I agree.
Crazy. I actually was thinking the other day, Crystal and I used to fight quite a bit about like petty, like silly things. Like we kept getting like snagged in each other's functions, right?
Oh my God, we would fight so much. No one on YouTube has any idea how much we fought.
And it kind of hit me the other day that I don't think that that's ever going to happen again. Don't want to jinx it, but I mean, I'm sure we'll get annoyed and frustrated with each other, but I don't think the claws are going to come out like that ever again.
It hasn't happened already in a while. Yeah, it hasn't happened in a while, I would say. Like, I feel like we're pretty much on the same page with a lot of that stuff now.
Yeah, and like, do you want to say a little bit about how you think that like understanding typology and functions can help with that?
Help specifically, how does it help you with your friendships? Well, I think that you just have a more accurate lens to understand why your friend does the things they do. So you actually have a better way of understanding if they're being spiteful or they're just being themselves with good intentions and owning those impacts they have on you. So I feel like you just know, okay, so the number one way I feel like what I needed from you, which you've learned to give me, is you've learned how to explain everything you're thinking, because when we clash, it's often that I would think you were being more judgmental than you actually were. And now you know how to qualify and explain all of those things because you've encoded that I need these certain disclaimers before I can receive anything that you're saying, or you'll just bite your tongue by giving your opinion on certain things and I really don't want to hear it. And you kind of like learn to take those steps toward it without just being like, oh, that's so sensitive of you. It's like, oh, that's like how you are, because I understand that these personality types act this way. It doesn't mean that they're just bad people or something. And I think that I've learned that with you too, where I've tried to learn to hold space to be a little more patient or take things less personally or just be nicer or explain everything I'm feeling even when I don't feel like it. So yeah.
So how much do you think of our fights beforehand, as we were like getting to know each other more, were because we were not fully understanding the person's functions?
Oh, I think like so much of them were
like 100%.
Because I think that, you know, I assume everyone has the same sorts of ways of being as me to a certain degree. Like I assumed everyone had introverted feeling like an ENFP would and extroverted intuition. So if someone got tired of my
100%?
I also think that we have some sorts of like values, things are colored by our functions that I think that we just have like philosophical clashes.
At least 90%.
Yeah, let's say
I'm trying to find
90%.
you're the TE user here. I'm trying to get a number.
I think that 90%, yeah, and the other 10% can be easily explained, like, oh yeah, like that's always going to be like a pet peeve, but it can be explained by functions, and it's like, justifiable and understandable, and we know how to like have better boundaries around each other too. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm. So
that was all very vague. I'm sorry for the SE users here who are like, what the fuck is she talking about?
So, Crystal, how would you answer the question of what are the biggest pet peeves about friendships? That can you list a few?
Um, Gosh,
I
fuck,
can go
like taking up
first
too
if you
much
want.
space,
Ooh.
which is funny. I was gonna say taking up too much space, but I take up a lot of space, so that sounds weird. But
That's funny because
yeah, I'll have to think about that. How about you go first?
one of my pet peeves is giving advice and then them not taking the advice and then them asking like the same question again when they could have just listened to my first advice. I think we're kind of both guilty of each other's like number
But I
one.
think, and so what you learned was how to translate the advice. You learned how to translate the advice and understand what they're actually asking, because you're
Yeah,
like,
like
well, you seem to be
exactly.
thinking about it this way, but do you need it this way?
Well, I think as far as like our friendship, working on that, part of it is that like your TI blind spot, like you either won't fully grasp my advice or like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you'd rather just do trial and error with TE or something. I don't know.
I
Like I
think
don't know
it's
what
like
it is.
combination.
Like part of it is that you don't like trust my advice. Part of it is that you don't quite get it, and part of it is that I don't quite understand the problem because it's like in
Yeah,
order for like
yeah.
my TI to give advice to you, like you just okay. For me, a lot of times once a new way of thinking about something snaps into place, that's all it takes for me to see the situation in a new light and to see
Yeah,
something
because it
clearly.
applies to like multiple things, because it's like has
Mhm.
multiple applications. My applications aren't that flexible. So I'll be like, should I just do this one thing in this situation? What am I gonna do in the next situation? So
So
I
I
don't know how
might
to
like
apply it.
tell you like some like life theme and expect you to apply it to the situation, but your TE is looking at the actual external logic of the situation, right?
Yeah, I am. And I'll be like, it's like a lose-lose. And you'll be like, but this one is less of a loss. And I'm like, how? Like, and you're like, it just is. Like, and you'll be
Like
like, I don't know what
I'm
you
trying
need
to
to
think
know.
of more of an example, but I guess it could be like you are having a problem with you're like in your feelings about some guy or something and I will say, "Why do you get invest energy in people who aren't worth your time?" I'll like say something like that. But that is like probably sounds really vague to you or something. Or like it's like this sort of axiom or something that I'll like throw at you, like some sort of NITI like idea, and then I'll
Like,
expect you
why do
to
you
like
not? And I'll be like,
apply
why do
it.
I? And then like, like that used to trigger me more. And now I'm like, that depends on the definitions of what waste your time even means. And then like getting into a philosophical debate about it almost makes me see whether, because to me I don't think about what my opinion is, which is, oh well, there's something in it for me, because to me it's not a waste of time. But I'm not able to go that deep into it, so it just looks like that's a judgment that this person's a waste of time and I should just take on her opinion and not think for myself. And I don't know how to like really further go into it, and then I feel frazzled, and you'll be like, doesn't seem like it went in. Seems like Crystal's having a weird freak out now, when all
Well, I think it's like what is frustrating to me is like when FI will block out like the sort of the solution, it seems. Like it's like I'll like see the way that your emotions are clouding you from being able to access any sort of TI. But like for you, the answer doesn't come from not feeling the emotions so that you can see the TI. It comes differently. Like I don't see TE, so I don't see how that helps you. But like
yeah,
for
well,
me,
okay, so
whenever I am being over
yeah, like,
emotional, I do need to kind of disconnect to kind of include TI. But yeah.
yeah, like, okay, so to bring that back to a real world perspective, it's well, I will misunderstand. I used to misunderstand that as you're trying to like tell me the solution as an action, as in cut off the people that aren't worth your time, which is what a TE user would say. But a TI user wants to like have this logic of
Yes.
understanding the pattern. It's not about taking action. But to me, if someone tells me that, it sounds like they're forcing me to like take an action by asking this question that's like sort of forcing me to
Oh,
like, you know, it sounds like you're trying to shove logic in my face as opposed to trying to ask me a question to free up my own logical flow, which I'm able
yeah.
to access more now thanks to you. But it took me finessing that it's not you're not asking a rhetorical question being like, well, you're just too dumb to realize that person is not worth your time. Oh my god, what's wrong with
No,
you?
I
Like
guess
that's
when
like
I
how it
say that,
sounds.
I'm wondering like how much you do care so that you can associate or you can adjust your behavior to match like how much it's worth it better.
Yeah. Like you're asking it more open-endedly than how
Hmm.
it sounds to TE because TE assumes all logic is therefore actionable advice, as opposed to this is a way to apply it to your mindset so you can think it through better,
Is
so you
my
can get to the
advice not
conclusion
super
faster.
actionable to you from your
It does
perspective?
it. I mean, the irony is it sounds actionable in a really linear, close-minded way, and I'm not thinking of it as let me thread it through everything I already am seeing. Like I'm not letting its application be as flexible because I just think you're just telling me one thing that you think I should do to shut the fuck up because you don't want to
The
hear about
funny
it,
thing
which is
is that I'll never tell someone what to do because I don't have all the information. So I'm pretty much expecting you to like thread it
exactly.
through.
And that's like a disclaimer that you've learned to say like, well, I'm not you, so I wouldn't
Yeah.
know. All I'm saying is, why are you investing your time in someone who it sounds like to me is wasting your time, but maybe it's not. Maybe I don't know. Like you've learned to do the throw your hands up.
Yeah.
Maybe it's I don't know. Like there's multiple ways this could be interpreted, Chris. And I'm like, there are multiple. And so then I can like
Yeah.
hear it holistically more.
Because I feel like sometimes I wish it would have fought back and been like, actually, they are worth my time because X, Y, and Z. But if I don't
Yes.
know
See, okay,
that,
yeah. There's the money. See, I didn't realize that TI wants an interactive dialogue.
yeah,
Because when I hear like sometimes like how TI users fight with each other, I'm like, that's so bitchy. As opposed to, well, but like the information was being exchanged. So you're never gonna ask me a pushy question like, so tell me, why is he worth your time? I don't have the information because you don't really need to know or care. You just want me to know for myself because that's my right to my private information, right?
yeah, yeah. And so, can you explain just briefly before we wrap this up a little
Oh
bit
my
about?
god, sorry, it was so long.
No, it's fine. Just your takeaway about like people taking up space and like what you've learned about that.
Okay, so this is actually funny because the example we just gave kind of applies to the pet peeve I was saying, where people will take up space when they ask one question like that. And I accidentally stopped taking up space because those kinds of questions intimidate me in a friend. So basically, friends with TI intimidate me because I don't like being like reminded of the fact that I don't feel allowed to fight back by, you know, the world or my culture or whatever. And the thing is, the pet peeve ended up being a way for me to grow as a person because I have been so jealous my whole life of like ESFJs and ENFJs who have no problem like talking openly about the things that their TI is like working through, but sharing life with people with problems that they're going through. I've been so unable to like open up in that respect because I'll say these facts and when people don't understand why I care or what's going on, it like super intimidates me. Oh my God,
So,
but
do you feel like when people take up space that it doesn't give you the space for you, or what?
it's not that yeah it's like they're taking up space and it trigger hairs this like kind of reflex in me to take up less space because I only feel like there's limited space in a friendship for one person to do the talking. So whenever people like start talking in that way, sometimes I almost feel like I have to shrink back even though I'm also an extrovert. I feel like intuitively there's only so much space before it becomes suffocating or something. So I'm not allowed to talk now or something. I don't know if that makes any sense. But like for
Yeah.
example, when you would
And
ask a
that
question
concept
like that,
really, just to say that concept makes like zero sense to me. Um, I don't know how related that is to FE and NI, but I don't think that, like, I think that the rules of a friendship is different. Like, just as like you have your own boundaries for your own domain, like for your own self and your own emotions, every like friendship has its own sort of boundaries or rules
It's like
within it.
you're saying the FE of human interaction can have these leaps and bounds. It just is how I view my own leaps and bounds. And I feel like I'm the kind of person who doesn't even like for example, you're like, I almost wish you would have bit back or fought back. That actually is a form of intimacy and a form of vulnerability for me to say, like, and interact with someone. I have to really trust them. So when I don't feel like I have that trust, I'll judge people for taking up space if I feel like the possibility of I could trust them and give my opinion too. But I
Does it
like,
feel like control to you?
yeah, it does feel like control. It doesn't feel like it doesn't even feel like they're purposefully controlling. They're just taking up a lot of space. It's like, I can't breathe like in all the space that, because when you ask that question, right, the like, why do you care so much? To me, I'm like, I don't feel comfortable answering is what I subconsciously am thinking. But then I feel like, oh, you just asked such a question that I don't want to tell you is like subconsciously the judgment I'm making. So then I go, you're taking up too much
And then my
space
FE
by
would have
coming in.
just said, like, oh, I wish that you would have said, you know what? I don't really want to tell you.
I didn't even realize I didn't want to tell this person because I
Yeah.
couldn't say anything almost.
FE just
So
expects people to say that of like, oh, I don't want to tell you, or I don't really feel like talking about it
yeah,
right
because
now.
it's like FE knows whether it wants to or not. But for me, it's like that is a logical question. That's very different than like, oh, how do you feel about Tame Impala? It's like that's a harmless question. But like, why is it that you like these kinds of people? Like, what is a sort of like what is the trick for how that works for you? That's like so deep for
Well,
me.
FE can talk about things like that without actually being super vulnerable about their identity. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really know how to explain it, but pretty much we can talk openly about our emotions while, I mean, we're still protecting our TI. Like,
Mm.
I was talking to my INFJ partner about this, where she was saying that she can list out all of her childhood traumas, like X, Y, and Z on a list to pretty much any stranger, and like she won't feel them while she's saying it. But like, it's way more
Hmm.
vulnerable to actually like get into that feeling. I mean, you can only, she would only like let herself get into that feeling with like a partner, but
I
like
feel
just to
like,
list it off and
oh
answer the
wow.
question is nothing. I relate to that. And it seems
Mm.
like, I don't know if that's TI, like TI blind spot for you or what, but it seems like for you, it's hard to answer the question without like feeling everything that comes with it.
Definitely, yeah. And I don't even realize the sorts of ways I skirt questions and I just navigate around them as a result. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that to tie this back to how functions play a role in
Mm-hmm.
friendships, if I hadn't known that like you weren't asking rhetorically to be bitchy and shut me up, like that's like a pattern that
It's
like
so weird.
like because like I started noticing it was honestly I think our friendship improved after I got more friends who weren't like the same as me and they were also like NFJs.
Yeah.
Like I have a lot of NFJ friends now, but now every time they ask me a question that's almost taken as bitchy on reflex, I'm like, oh no, that's just how they all are, like whatever, it's fine, okay, makes sense, yeah, like Megan wasn't just
The
making
thing is that it's actually so not bitchy. Like the thing is that it's like a fear that comes up that's like FI projecting a fear of what the potential motive might be underneath, where it's like FE is looking at the external of, would this action cause like a negative impact to the person, like I don't know, but it's like if FE doesn't know the FI users triggers, and it's almost impossible to know like what to say to like not piss them off, because that is impossible, you
because you don't
know.
because you aren't remembering and keeping track of the things that could piss them off or like trying to
Well,
navigate that maybe
it
like because
even
it's like
seems like FI users, even if you don't know someone really well, are like going to be aware of potential triggers that someone might have and like try and tiptoe
yeah we do
around
it for ourselves
those.
and for other people, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I just want to say that different people have different pet peeves in friendships, and two people of the same type might have the same exact pet peeve in a friendship, or sorry, two
They
people
might
of
be.
different types might have the same pet peeve, but their functions are still going to be interacting with this. So, what I wanted to let you guys know is that on July 26th at 3 p.m. Central Time, Crystal and I are going to be hosting a discussion that is all about what does it mean to be a friend, and we're going to be asking questions with each other, just such as how do you know if someone's a good friend? What does someone have to do in order to be at that level where you call them a friend versus like acquaintance? What are some signs that you can get from someone that they might trust you? What needs do you have as a friend? Things like that. All the information will be linked below, but I just wanted to tell you guys that the purpose of these sort of discussions is that I feel like when you can just get people talking, especially like with the different types, get people talking and vulnerable about these things, then you can really start to see how the functions play a role, as hopefully you're already starting to theorize about the functions and seeing the functions play a role in Crystal and I's examples in friendships. So, is there
Yeah,
anything you
I
want to
feel
add?
like
Yeah.
we could have like talked for way longer on this because even one of the examples is like a freaking rabbit hole. But yeah, like
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned a lot about like FE and TI to where it doesn't trigger me almost at all, like to the degree it used to. And I don't think a lot of FI users have mastered this in comparison.
Yeah.
To where I know how to bite back and not be afraid of seeming bitchy or out of line. And that has improved my friendships and given me the ability to even like improve my own life separately from my friendships. So yeah, I would love to see you guys at the discussion because it's going to be not just Megan but also me, and
Yeah.
we would love to share and hear from everyone about their
Yeah.
experiences because like we always get questions about friendships and
Yeah.
relationships with the functions clashing. So it's be a great opportunity to
Yeah. I really
yeah.
want it to be like a space for people who are ready to understand functions on a deeper level and have the space for those discussions. Um, but yeah, also, what else was I going to say? Oh, if you're watching this later at a later date, um, uh, we are going to be doing discussions like this every month, and it's $12 a month to join my membership group to have access to this discussion and like a Facebook group where you can chat about these things after the discussion. And if you can't make it, that'll be recorded and uploaded as well. But God, was I going to say something else?
Get typed by
Hmm.
us, the usual.
Yeah, if you have any questions about that, if you have any questions about that, let me know. But I hope to see you guys there. And I'm really excited about that. Oh, I know what I was going to say is that I've realized that so much, like I've done a few workshops now and it's been really fun for me, but I'm realizing that if we are only talking about typology through the lens of like, this is what this function is, this is what this function is, then it can kind of be hard to learn and observe. And like, so the idea of this discussion and the ones like it that we're going to be hosting monthly is that it's sort of like this test bed for theorizing. And we're using friendship or other topics as a way to see the functions. Because if I just tell you, oh, FI cares about its personal values and FE is thinking about the group values, you might not know what that looks like, but hopefully now you know from this description with Crystal. Crystal is so caught up in her personal values that she wasn't thinking about reflecting them externally. And
Mm-hmm.
you would take things that FE says personally. And FE is so focused on the objective value that they aren't thinking about the ways that someone might subjectively take offense. If it's like, well, I did nothing wrong here by asking this question, so why are you reacting that way? We don't really know how to be aware of people's potential triggers that are subjective. So, yeah, I think a lot of what I talk about on my channel that might seem like weird theories or like weird associations, like whenever I'm associating something with a function, it comes directly from conflicts like these that I've had with Crystal or with others, to where we literally go in there and we're like, why did you think that I was doing this here whenever I thought I was doing this in the situation? And then you dig and dig, and it's like, oh, well, Crystal, why did you think that I was telling you to shut up? Because what I was saying was this. And so that's really the experience that I want to, I guess, open up for more people to join us. So
yeah, we've cracked a lot of codes in our friendship because we're really transparent about the fact that we used to fight like a shit ton, and now we like have just watched it die down. So
and I think it's possible for everyone to sort of plateau like that. Like, not that our friendship has plateaued in like love for one another, but like,
yeah,
it
really
was
hasn't.
rocky.
We have much more philosophical discussions now because we're not just spending time just being like, well, you're like this and you nah.
Exactly. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Yeah, as Crystal said, as always, we do have our typing services. And also, if you didn't know, you can book a Q&A with me if you just want to ask me questions about the cognitive functions. And I also have a 90-minute coaching session available that is all linked below. And yeah, thank you, Crystal, for joining me. And we'll hope to see you in the discussion.